Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I made a few cards with some of the Simon Says Stamp Daniel Smith watercolor printed sheets. They released these specific ones a couple of months ago, and I actually did all this coloring quite some time ago and then finally got around to making them into cards and all that stuff. So all of these are printed on Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper on the smooth side. They've done a whole bunch over the last however long doing them with the Susie's paintable prints, or yeah, printed paintables, same thing. The Susie's Doodles ones are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and those are super fun. I've done videos on them. I've shown them in hauls. They're just really fun, you know, quirky designs. And then these ones are a little bit bigger. These are about 5 by 7 roughly, like the whole sheet, and then the printed area is a bit smaller. And these ones come with dots of watercolor on them. So if you've never worked with tube watercolors before, these are literally just dots of tube liquid watercolors. And they are, you know, pressed onto these papers and then let to dry. And then all you need to do to work with them is reactivate them with water. So I'm using my little Tim Holtz fine detail water brush here for my watercoloring. You could use a paintbrush and dip it in water. You might even be able to use like a blender pen maybe, but that would take a really long time. But if you want to take the time, why not? But I like using just my little water brush because the great thing about these is I can pack them up with me, you know, put a bunch in a large Ziploc bag, have my little water brush full of water, and either some paper towel or just cloth, something that I can just wipe my brush off between colors, or if it gets too much water flowing, etc. And then I can color these on the go. So I did just this one on camera, and then the other two that I colored, I did, you know, sitting in front of the TV watching a show, or, you know, I'd be watching Netflix, or I'd be waiting, you know, in the doctor's office for an appointment, whatever. These are small enough that I can just kind of prop it up on my knee or on my purse, whatever, and do a bit of coloring. So I really like these, especially because having those watercolor dots, these are high quality. Daniel Smith is high quality watercolors, and they're already there. Everything's ready for me. I don't have to think. You know, it gives me color combos that I wouldn't normally think of or, you know, reach for very often. Like this first one, this is the lace heart one, or heartful. This is heartful. I always forget sometimes the names of everything. So I just go along and fill in the colors. There's enough of the watercolor on them to do one full one. You might have some left over, and if you do, you can just cut that off and then save it for other projects. I have a whole bunch of the little Daniel Smith dot charts. I have the big ones, and I have a bunch of the Simon Says Stamp ones, and I just like them for the convenience and to pull them out and be able to, you know, have a whole bunch of colors at my fingertips that are affordable, because Daniel Smith colors, like if you are buying the tubes, it can add up. I've invested quite a bit of money into the Daniel Smith. They're worth it. It's just the dot charts are nice. It gives you a chance to kind of experiment and play with these colors without having to invest a significant amount of money. So like I said, I did the other ones off camera just randomly when I had the time to work on them. I never really time myself. It's just something fun, you know, to keep your hands busy when you're, you know, watching TV or just killing time, waiting for appointments, whatever. So after I'd watercolored all of them, I ended up die cutting them with the largest of the Simon stitched rectangle dies. And then for all my sentiments, I'm using 3 of Simon's sentiment wafer dies. And I pulled out my little Xyron Creative Station light here because I was doing a ton of die cutting. So I wanted to coat all the cardstock I was going to die cut with my Xyron adhesive in the Creative Station. This saved a ton of time, so I'm not sitting and fiddling with a ton of, you know, liquid adhesive, etc. This just made it go a lot quicker. So everything has adhesive on the back of it before I start running it through my die cut machine. And then I go to town die cutting a ton. I end up die cutting multiple layers of each of these word dies. And of course, some of these big ones like the Lucky to Know You and the Oh Hello There have multiple words in that one. So it was a lot of die cutting, but adding the adhesive first made this go a lot quicker. And then I just did, you know, all my adhesive on the back of the cardstock first, then all of my die cutting, and then I'll do all my assembling. So I die cut a ton of white, just white random scraps of cardstock first, And then I die cut black with the Big Thanks wafer die. And then I use steel gray for the Oh Hello There and the Lucky to Know You wafer dies. I chose steel gray just because there was gray in those watercolor panels, and I just liked how it was a bit more subtle and let the watercolor panels kind of shine through. But for the Thanks one, I went with black cardstock just because I wanted it to stand out just a little bit more, because it's also a smaller die as well. So I had die cut the white cardstock 3 times, that after running it through the Xyron machine, so there's adhesive on the back. And what I really loved about this is you have more wiggle room with this than even liquid adhesive. Like, you only have so much time with liquid adhesive before it starts to set. And sometimes I find it'll set before I've got my layers in place when I'm dealing with more finicky word dies. And then I'm trying to, tear them apart. Whereas this isn't set until you really press it firmly together. So I can kind of move things around and fiddle with it and even like peel it apart a little bit if I, accidentally press things into the wrong spot. So I stacked together all the layers of white cardstock, and then with this one I topped it with the black cardstock die cut. And then with the other ones I'd stacked 3 layers of white cardstock and then used the steel gray cardstock layer on top. So I get all of my sentiments, all of them die cut, all of them stacked together, and then all of them removed from the scrap paper so that I can start adhering them to my card fronts. So with these more, especially this Lucky to Know You, I absolutely love this die set. I've done, again, videos on this one too, and I absolutely love the look of it. It just takes a little bit of time to stack all these pieces together. So I usually leave my base layer in the, cardstock and then just kind of stack on top of that. It makes it a little easier to line everything up. And I had done the same thing with that Oh Hello There. So after I've got everything die cut, I can peel off the backing off the bottom layer and then press these into place on my card fronts here. So super easy to do. It just I started with this one. I started with the middle word and then, popped on the one above it and the one below it just to kind of line everything up. And then usually referring to the die set packaging just to kind of get an idea of how things line up. With this one, it's not too bad. With the Lucky to Know You, because it's such a large wafer die, that takes a little bit longer. This one, I just wanted to make sure I had lined it up straight because this is the only die cut on the front of my card. So got that one pressed into place and then got that Lucky to Know You pressed onto the 3rd watercolor panel. And then off camera, I stamped and heat embossed a sentiment from the Big Thanks Words stamp set from Simon. I just stamped it onto black cardstock and heat embossed it with white embossing powder and then trimmed it down with my paper trimmer. And then I'm going to adhere that onto the card front with just a little piece of Doris, the narrow strip foam tape that I love. And always, I will have links to everything in the description box below the video as well as on my blog. So got that adhered into place, and then I pulled out coordinating sentiments to stamp on the inside of all my card bases. And they're all from 2 different Simon stamp sets. So the first ones I'm using are from the Hand-Lettered Encouragement stamp set. And I'm just stamping those sentiments with Simon's Intense Black ink. So just getting those lined up on my acrylic blocks and then stamped onto the insides of my cards. And all my cards are going to be A2 top folding cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then this last one, I used a sentiment from the Loving Heart stamp set that I love. So stamped that with the Intense Black ink. And then to adhere all of those watercolor panels, I decided to just adhere them flat to the card bases since I've got a lot of dimension going on with the die cut sentiments. So I'm just using Simon's Craft Tacky Glue and applying a fairly thin amount because I, 1, don't want it oozing out everywhere, and 2, I don't want it warping the cardstock. So I just apply a thin amount, and that gives me those few seconds to kind of wiggle around, get those straight. And I adhere all 3 card fronts to all 3 card bases with that adhesive. I could leave it here because I'd put in all the effort, coloring the backgrounds, but I wanted to add just the tiniest bit of bling without going too crazy. So I pulled out 3 different packs of Lucy's Jewels. I have the lemon, the cherry, and the blackberry. And I just added them to different areas. There's a little, circle areas here and there on these backgrounds. And that's where I just put little dabs of the Craft Tacky Glue. And then I would just pick up the jewels in the colors I wanted to use with my jewel picker and then press those into place. So nothing too crazy, just a little bit of bling. So I used yellow on this one. I used the red on the Oh Hello There card front. And then on this last one, I used the blackberry, which are like a purple jewel, and just adhered those into place with the craft tacky glue. And that's going to finish off all these cards. So as always, there will be links below the video to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. In the blog post, there'll be the pictures and everything else. You can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate the support, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.